Hey, you guys, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you are on my YouTube, if you are on my podcast, please like, please share, please subscribe, share comments if you can. And I love your feedback. So I want to say thank you for being a part of my community. Thank you for listening. Thank you for following. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. I really do appreciate it. Um, for those of you that are new to me, my name is Jennifer. I am a nonprofit expert, 40 years of experience helping organizations not just start, beyond starting. I help organizations ensure that they have the capacity, the strategy, the structure for their organization to sustain itself, to build the credibility, the capacity to attract donors and funders and supporters long term. All right. That's the work that I do. That's the work that I've always done. That's the work that I love to do. I love the nonprofit space. And having worked in many capacities within nonprofit organizations, I feel it is a privilege and an honor to help those that are coming into this field, never having worked in a nonprofit, never having run a nonprofit, and find themselves struggling. Letting them know what it is to just run their organizations every single day. That includes the leadership, that includes the governance, that includes the financial responsibility, that includes the fundraising, and being able to ensure that the organization is equipped and structured to ensure that that program and the mission is accomplished on an ongoing and consistent basis as well. Let's dive right into it. I want you to start by thinking about an organization that you've admired. Is there an organization that you have admired? Okay. Um, I've worked for the American Red Cross. I admire that program. I've worked for Girl Scouts of the USA. I admire that program. I've worked for the Black AIDS Institute. I've worked for the Los Angeles. I've worked for a lot of organizations that I've admired. And I've worked with thousands of organizations, both nationally and internationally. And too many really to count, but the admiration of the work really sticks out. I want you to think about an organization that you've admired. Maybe it served children, maybe veterans, right? Maybe survivors of domestic violence. Maybe people experiencing homelessness. Maybe families in crisis, right? I want you to think about this. Have you ever seen an organization with an incredible mission quietly disappear? No announcement, no headlines, no scandal. It just simply faded away. Programs stopped, staff left, funding dried up. Eventually, the doors closed. Here's the question that has bothered me for 40 years. If the mission was so important, why did the organization fail? If the mission was so important, why did the organization fail? Was the need gone? No. Did people stop caring? No. So what happened? Today, I want to explore something that I believe every nonprofit leader and founder needs to understand. Because I don't believe missions fail. I believe organizations fail to protect them. I'm going to say that again. I don't believe that missions fail. I believe organizations fail to protect them. Can I ask you a few questions? Okay. I want you to just answer to yourself. I want you to do some self reflection. Okay. Have you ever thought our mission is amazing? Have you ever believed if people just knew what we were doing, support would come? Have you ever said, we change lives. We just need funding. We just need more visibility. We just need the right grant. Most of you have thought those exact things, right? So many of you have told me you have. When I first entered nonprofit leadership, I believed something that almost everyone believes. Okay. And again, when I started this, I started the nonprofit space when I was in college. Um, and so I came to it not from a place of passion. All right. I came into it believing, is the mission strong? Right. So when I became the executive director, when I was the director of development, when I was the vice president, I understand why people really hang so much on the mission. I really get that. Right. And having worked with organizations that I've helped build and develop their organizations, the mission is what drives people, right? It's what the passion is attached to. And so people will actually believe, it's not uncommon, that if the mission was strong enough, people would support it. It makes sense, right? After all, who wouldn't want to help children or feed families, right? Or educate youth or help survivors. But the reality is this, over time, something didn't add up. I watched organizations with life-changing missions struggle every year. And at the same time, I've watched organizations with less emotional missions continue to grow, right? And that bothered me. That bothered me because it forced me to ask a difficult question. What if the mission isn't what determines whether an organization survives? That question changed the course of my career, particularly as I became the executive director and as I was raising, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, as I was helping as my job, structuring 1,000 organizations a year to raise money. I realized, what if the mission isn't what determines whether an organization survives? Imagine someone hands you the blueprint of the most beautiful house you've ever seen. Every room is perfect. The design is incredible. It's exactly the home you've always wanted. Now imagine trying to build that house on sand. No foundation, no structural support, no engineering. Would you blame the blueprint when the house collapsed? Of course not. The blueprint wasn't the problem. The foundation was. Your mission is the blueprint. Your organization is the foundation. And here is where I want every nonprofit leader to hear me. A beautiful blueprint cannot compensate for a weak foundation. This is where I think we've been asking the wrong question. This is where I think the wrong question is being asked. People that call me, they inbox me, they text me, they DM me every day. How do we fund the mission? How do we fund the mission, Jen? Instead of asking, Jen, is my organization strong enough to protect the mission? Because every mission depends on something people rarely talk about. Every mission depends on something that people rarely talk about. It depends on leadership. It depends on governance. It depends on financial stewardship, systems, board engagement, accountability, operational discipline. Those things aren't distractions from the mission. They're what keep the mission alive. When those systems are weak, even extraordinary missions become vulnerable. Listen, I don't say this to discourage you. I say this because your mission really matters. In fact, it matters so much to leave it dependent on hope, right? Your mission matters so much. In fact, it matters too much to leave it dependent on hope, dependent on passion alone, on one grant, dependent on one donor or one founder, one person. Your community deserves more. Your team deserves more. The people that you serve deserve more. And so do you. The question isn't whether your mission deserves to survive. The question is, have you built an organization capable of carrying that mission for the next 10, 20, or 50 years? I talk to so many organizations every day. Jen, we're stuck. Jen, funding is our biggest issue. Jen, we don't have board members. Jen, I'm doing everything by myself. You've built an organization with no foundation. And that organization that does not have a plan, a strategy, a system is not equipped, is not capable of supporting that program or the mission long term. This is exactly why I created the organizational capacity assessment. Not because your mission needs to change, but because your organization deserves to know where it stands. The assessment isn't about fundraising. It's about discovering whether the organization behind your mission is prepared to support the future you're trying to create. And when you complete it, you're going to receive an organizational capacity intelligence report. It's going to help you to see your organization through a different lens, not simply the lens of a passionate leader, a person who started an organization because they wanted to help, not simply through the lens of this is what happened to me and I want to help other people that because, who look like me or who are going through what I went through, not through that lens. But through the lens or the eyes of someone deciding whether to invest in the organization, right? I don't think that you can look at your organization and say, we got an amazing mission, we've got an amazing program, but we don't have donors, we don't have supporters, we don't have grants, when other organizations do. Like, what's the difference? Is it the money or is it the organization? Because before we ask, how do we raise more money, right? That's always the question. Jen, how do I raise money? Jen, how do I fundraise? Jen, how do I get funders? Jen, how do I get sponsors? Jen, how do I get partners? Jen, funding is my biggest issue. Jen, we don't have enough money to operate. I was talking to a woman yesterday. She's had her organization for 6 years and she's paid for it out of her pocket for all 6 years. And now she's out of money. The organization was never equipped, never structured, never designed, did not have the capacity to sustain that program. And she was funding it all out of her pocket. And I kept saying, is it the money that's the problem? Or does the organization not have the capacity, the knowledge, the experience, the structure to raise the money? I want you to ask yourself, Am I thinking that money is the problem? Or maybe you should ask yourself, what kind of organization are you asking, wanting people to invest in? Let me leave you with one thought. Missions rarely disappear because they stopped being important. They disappear because the organization wasn't built to protect them. Don't let that become your story. Build an organization that's just as strong as your passion, one that's prepared to serve your community long after today's challenges have passed. If I've challenged you and the way that you've been thinking, I want you to subscribe. I want you to follow, because I'm going to continue to talk about this as we explore what it truly takes to build nonprofits that are trusted, sustainable, and built to last. This is conversation that you're not going to find on chat, that you're not going to find on Google, that you're not going to find in those Facebook groups. Okay. Um, Not that the information that you'll find there is not important, it's just not complete. And it's leaving organizations with too many gaps, stuck. And I want to say to you that when you're ready to understand the strength of the organization behind your mission, I want to invite you to take the organizational capacity assessment. Because after 40 years of doing this work in nonprofit leadership and in fundraising and growing and scaling organizations, I'm convinced of one truth. Funding does not create capacity. Capacity is what creates funding. I want to say thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.